The snow had already begun to cover her tracks. Not gently. Not kindly. It came down hard and fast, erasing proof that she had ever been there at all. Her body lay twisted at the edge of the mountain trail, half on frozen ground, half in drifting snow. One boot was missing. Her coat hung open, buttons torn away. Blood had dried dark against the white, already disappearing beneath fresh flakes. She tried to breathe. Every breath burned. Her name was Elena Whitford, and she knew, deep in her bones, that she wasn't meant to survive this night. They had told her so. "Leave her," one of them had said, voice sharp with irritation. "She'll freeze before morning." Another had laughed. "Good. Saves us the trouble." The sound of horses fading down the trail had been the worst part. Not the pain. Not the cold. The certainty. She was alone. Now, hours later, the world had narrowed to two things, cold and darkness. Elena dragged herself forward an inch at a time, fingers clawing uselessly at snow that gave no grip. Her ribs screamed. One arm barely worked. She tasted iron every time she swallowed. Just a little farther, she told herself. But there was nowhere to go. Her vision blurred. Pines above her swayed like shadows in water. The wind howled through the mountain pass, cruel and endless, like the land itself had decided she didn't belong. She rested her. The sound came through the storm like a heartbeat. Slow. Heavy. Steady. At first, Elena thought it was her imagination. The cold had started to pull strange tricks on her mind, whispers where there were none, shapes that shifted and dissolved when she tried to focus on them. But then it came again. A dull crunch. Snow under iron shoes. A horse. Her eyes fluttered open, barely slits against the blowing white. She tried to lift her head, but pain exploded behind her eyes and forced her back down. The effort cost her more strength than she had left. "Don't hope," she told herself. Hope hurt worse than the cold. The horse stopped. Silence followed, deep, unnatural, like the mountain itself was holding its breath. Then a voice spoke. Low. Calm. Unhurried. Hell of a place to lie down. Elena tried to answer. Tried to scream. Nothing came out but a broken rasp that vanished into the wind. Boots crunched closer. She felt it before she saw him, a presence, solid and unmoving, like a pine tree that had survived 100 winters. The snow shifted as he crouched beside her. Warmth brushed her face for the first time in hours, faint but unmistakable. A gloved hand hovered near her cheek, careful not to touch yet. "You alive?" he asked. Barely, she wanted to say. Instead, her lips trembled. The man exhaled slowly. "Yeah. You are." He didn't curse. Didn't panic. Didn't shout into the storm. He simply acted. A lantern appeared in his hand, its warm light cutting a hole through the blue darkness. Elena saw his face then, weathered, bearded, eyes dark and unreadable. Not cruel. Not soft. Just steady. The kind of face that didn't waste words. "You're freezing," he said. "Bleeding too." She felt his arms slide beneath her, strong, deliberate. The moment he lifted her, pain tore through her body so violently she cried out. He stilled instantly. "I know," he said quietly. "I know. But you won't last here." She clutched his coat without realizing it, fingers curling into rough wool like it was the only real thing left in the world. He adjusted his grip, holding her closer, shielding her from the wind with his body. The horse stamped nearby, restless but obedient. As he turned, Elena's head lolled against his chest. She could hear his heart, slow, powerful, unafraid. "They left me," she whispered. His jaw tightened. "Who?" Her vision blurred again. The words tangled in her mouth. "Family." That was all she managed before darkness rushed in. She woke to heat. Real heat. Not the imagined warmth of dying. Firelight flickered against rough log walls. The smell of pine smoke filled her lungs. Her body screamed in protest as sensation returned, every bruise, every cracked rib announcing itself at once. She whimpered. Immediately, a shadow moved. "Easy," the voice said again. "You're safe." Elena's eyes focused slowly. She lay on a narrow bed near a stone hearth. Clean blankets covered her. Her torn clothes were gone, replaced by something dry and heavy. The man stood near the fire, sleeves rolled up, hands stained dark with blood that wasn't his. "Where am I?" she croaked. "My cabin," he replied. "High Ridge. You won't freeze here." She swallowed. Why? He glanced at her then, really looked at her. Because I don't ride past people who are dying, he said simply. Silence settled between them. She watched him move, efficient, purposeful. He checked a pot on the fire, added something that smelled sharp and bitter. When he came closer, she noticed the rifle by the door, the knife at his belt, the way everything in the cabin had its place. You have broken ribs, he said. Bad bruising. Head wound. You were dragged. Her throat tightened. He continued, voice flat but not unkind. Someone wanted you dead. Tears slid down her temples, soaking into the pillow. She turned her face away, ashamed of them. A pause. Then the bed shifted slightly as he sat on the edge, careful, distant. They won't find you here, he said. How do you know? Because this mountain doesn't give up what it keeps. She laughed weakly. It came out like a sob. I don't belong to anyone, she whispered. Not anymore. Something changed in the air then. The man stood. You do now, he said. Her breath caught. Not ownership. Not threat. Protection. He met her gaze, eyes dark and absolute. No one hurts what's mine. The fire crackled louder, like it approved. Outside, the storm howled, but it couldn't reach her anymore. Elena drifted in and out of sleep for most of the day, the kind of half-conscious state where pain dulled just enough to let her rest, but never enough to forget it was there. Each time she woke, the fire was still burning, the cabin still standing, and the mountain man still nearby, sometimes sharpening a blade, sometimes mending tack, sometimes simply sitting in the chair by the door, watching the world outside through the small window as if daring it to try something. He didn't hover. He didn't question. He didn't ask her to explain herself while she was weak. That, more than anything, made her feel safe. When she finally woke fully, the light outside had shifted from harsh white to the pale blue of late afternoon. Snow pressed against the window like a living thing. The cabin creaked softly under the weight of winter settling in. You're awake, he said, without turning around. Yes, she whispered. Her throat felt raw, like she'd been screaming in her sleep. He crossed the room and handed her a cup. Drink. It was warm. Bitter. Medicinal. She grimaced but drank anyway, because she sensed this was a man who didn't give unnecessary instructions. What's your name? She asked quietly. He hesitated, just long enough for her to notice. Caleb, he said finally. Caleb, she repeated, testing it. Thank you, for not leaving me. He shrugged, eyes on the fire. Didn't seem right. The simplicity of it made her chest ache. She shifted slightly and gasped as pain flared along her side. Caleb was at her side instantly, steadying her with a hand that was firm but careful, like he understood exactly how fragile she still was. You shouldn't move much, he said. Your ribs need time. How long? She asked. Long enough. She nodded. That was answer enough. Silence settled again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt intentional. Like the kind of quiet you earned by surviving something terrible together. After a while, she spoke. They'll look for me. Caleb didn't ask who they were. He just nodded. I know. Fear curled in her stomach. If they come here, they won't, he said. She turned her head to look at him. You're very sure? His jaw tightened. I don't let trouble climb this far unless it knows what it's risking. Something in his tone made her believe him. Night came early. The wind howled harder, slamming snow against the cabin walls. Caleb added more wood to the fire, then barred the door, not dramatically, just practically, like a man who had done this 100 times before. Elena watched him from the bed. You live out here alone? Used to, he said. Her heart skipped. Used to? He glanced at her, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. Long story. She didn't push. Whatever had driven him into this isolation wasn't hers to claim. Later, as the pain medicine pulled her back toward sleep, a sound cut through the storm, distant, faint, but unmistakable. Hooves! Caleb froze. In one smooth motion, he reached for his rifle. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. They're here. Maybe, he said calmly. Stay quiet. He moved to the window, barely shifting the curtain. His body language changed, not tense, but alert, like a predator that had sensed another nearby. The hooves faded. Then stopped. Voices carried faintly through the wind. Male. Angry. Elena squeezed her eyes shut. Her hands shook beneath the blankets. Every memory of being dragged, of boots at her back, of laughter in the dark came rushing back at once. Caleb crossed the room and knelt beside her bed. "Look at me," he said quietly. She did. "You're not on that trail anymore," he continued. "You're here. With me." "What if they come inside?" she whispered. His eyes hardened, not with fear, but with promise. "They won't." He stood, moved back to the door, and waited. Minutes passed. Then more. Finally, the voices drifted away, swallowed by the storm and the mountain's vast indifference. Only then did Caleb lower the rifle. Elena let out a sob she hadn't realized she was holding. He didn't touch her. Didn't crowd her. He just said, "Get some rest. You'll need your strength." "For what?" she asked. "For deciding what comes next." She slept deeply that night. When she woke the next morning, the storm had eased. Pale sunlight spilled through the window, glinting off fresh snow. Her body still hurt, but it was a distant, manageable pain now. Caleb was outside, chopping wood. The steady rhythm of it grounded her. Each strike sounded like a heartbeat, solid, reliable. For the first time since she'd been left for dead, Elena allowed herself to believe something dangerous. That she might live. And not just survive, but choose. Elena sat up against the pillows as morning stretched slowly across the cabin. The fire had burned low, leaving the air cool but not cold. Her body still ached, but the sharp edge of pain had dulled into something she could breathe through. Outside, the steady chop of Caleb's axe echoed again, measured, controlled, relentless. It reminded her that he was real. That this wasn't some last, merciful dream before death. She swung her legs carefully over the side of the bed. The floor was cold beneath her bare feet, sending a jolt up her spine. She hissed and nearly lost her balance, but forced herself upright, gripping the bed frame until the room stopped spinning. She needed to move. To remind herself she still could. The door creaked as she opened it just enough to peer outside. Snow lay untouched across the clearing, smooth and blindingly white. Caleb stood a short distance away, sleeves rolled, breath fogging the air as the axe rose and fell. He didn't look toward her, but somehow he knew. "You shouldn't be standing," he said. She blinked. "You didn't even look." "I don't have to." She smiled faintly and stepped back inside before her legs betrayed her completely. When he came in a few minutes later, carrying an armful of wood, he stopped short when he saw her sitting at the table instead of the bed. His eyes flicked to her face, then her ribs. "You're stubborn," he said. "Still alive," she replied. "Seems fair." He set the wood down and poured her a cup of something hot. "Sit. Drink. Then rest." She obeyed, wrapping her hands around the cup. "You always talk like that?" "Like what?" "Like every word cost something." A pause. Then, "Words get people hurt." She studied him over the rim of the cup. "Someone hurt you." He didn't answer. After a moment, she spoke again, softer this time. "They were my brothers." The words landed heavily between them. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "My parents died when I was 16, Elena continued. Left the farm to the three of us. At first, they protected me. Then the debts came. Then the drinking. Then the anger needed somewhere to go." Her fingers trembled. She clenched them around the cup until the shaking eased. "They said I owed them," she whispered. "For staying alive. For being a burden. When I tried to leave, they said I'd never survive the winter." She laughed bitterly. "Guess they wanted to be right." Caleb's voice was low. "People who hurt you don't get to decide your ending." "They tried," she said. "On that trail." He met her eyes then, something dark and dangerous flickering beneath his calm. "And they failed." The sound of distant crows broke the moment. Caleb moved to the window, scanning the tree line. "What is it?" Elena asked. "Nothing," he said. "Yet." But she heard it in his voice, the certainty that trouble didn't simply vanish. It waited. That afternoon, while Elena rested, Caleb packed supplies. Extra ammunition. Dried meat. A coil of rope. He moved like a man preparing for something inevitable. When she noticed, fear crept back into her chest. "Are we leaving?" "No," he said. "But if they come again, I don't want surprises." "Caleb, if they get hurt, because of me." He turned to her slowly. They chose their path. That night, the mountain went quiet in a way that felt wrong. No wind. No animal calls. Just a heavy stillness that pressed against the cabin walls. Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Then she heard it. A branch snapping. Her breath caught. Caleb was already moving. He lifted a finger to his lips as he reached for his rifle, eyes never leaving the door. He motioned for her to stay still. The sound came again, closer this time. A shadow passed across the window. Elena's heart pounded so hard she was sure it would give her away. A voice called out softly. "Caleb." She froze. Caleb didn't answer. "Elena," the voice continued, syrupy and false. "We just want to talk." Tears burned behind her eyes. She shook her head desperately. Caleb stepped closer to the door, his voice steady and cold. "You've said enough." A laugh followed. "You think you can keep what doesn't belong to you?" The words snapped something in him. Caleb threw the door open. The lantern light spilled out onto the snow, revealing two figures at the edge of the clearing. Her brothers. Faces hard. Hands too close to their weapons. "You crossed a line," Caleb said. One of them sneered. "You're just a man hiding in the woods." Caleb raised his rifle, not aimed, just ready. "And you're standing where the mountain decides who leaves." Silence stretched. Then, slowly, they backed away. "This isn't over," one of them said. Caleb didn't blink. "It is for tonight." They vanished into the trees. Elena collapsed back against the bed, shaking. Caleb closed the door, barred it, then finally came to her side. He rested a hand near her shoulder, not touching, just close enough to ground her. "They won't try again soon," he said. "Fear works when it's earned." She looked up at him, eyes wet. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes," he said quietly. "I did." For the first time, she saw it clearly. He wasn't just protecting her from them. He was protecting her right to live. Morning arrived wrapped in a pale, fragile quiet. Snow lay heavy on the trees, bending branches low, as if the mountain itself were listening. Elena woke before Caleb this time, her body sore but steadier than it had been days ago. The pain was still there, but it no longer ruled her. She could breathe through it. She could think past it. That felt like victory. She sat up slowly, letting her feet find the floor without panic. The room no longer spun. The fear no longer leapt first. She pulled on the thick sweater Caleb had left folded at the foot of the bed, the wool smelling faintly of pine and smoke. Outside, dawn light crept across the clearing. Caleb stood near the tree lean, rifle slung over his shoulder, watching the path the men had taken the night before. He looked carved from the morning itself, still, silent, unyielding. "I should have died out there," Elena said softly from the doorway. He didn't turn. "You didn't." "That wasn't luck." "No," he agreed. "It wasn't." She stepped beside him, careful but determined. The cold bit her cheeks, sharp and clean. For a moment, they stood together without speaking. "They'll come back," she said. "Yes." "When?" Caleb finally looked at her. "Soon. Men like that don't leave loose ends." Her stomach tightened, but this time, she didn't shrink from the thought. "Then I don't want to hide." He studied her face, reading the truth there. "You're not ready." "I don't mean fight," she said. "I mean stand." He considered that. Then nodded once. "All right?" The day passed in preparation, not frantic, not fearful, but deliberate. Caleb showed her where the spare pistol was kept. How to load it. How to hold it steady. He corrected her grip with words, not touch, letting her own the learning. "Power isn't about pulling a trigger," he told her. "It's about knowing you could." By afternoon, she could stand without swaying. She helped prepare food, her movement slow but sure. Each small task stitched something back together inside her, confidence, agency, choice. When dusk came, the sky turned bruised purple. The wind picked up again. Elena felt it before she heard it. "They're close," she said. Caleb nodded. "Go inside." She hesitated. "I want to see." He didn't argue. The horses appeared at the edge of the clearing as the first stars blinked into existence. 2 men this time. Her brothers. Faces set. Eyes cold. They dismounted without greeting. "You've made this harder than it had to be," the older one said. Elena stepped forward before Caleb could stop her. "I didn't make anything," she said. "You did." Their eyes widened slightly, surprised she could still stand. "You belong with us," the younger one snapped. "Your blood." Blood doesn't excuse cruelty, she replied, her voice steady. And it doesn't give you ownership. They laughed, short, ugly sounds. Caleb moved then, placing himself half a step in front of her. Not blocking her. Standing with her. This is where it ends, he said. One of them reached for his weapon. Caleb's rifle came up instantly. The mountain seemed to lean in. No one hurts what's mine, Caleb said quietly. For a moment, no one moved. Then Elena spoke, clear, unwavering. I'm not yours. I never was. Something in her voice broke the stalemate. The men backed away, fear flickering at last behind their anger. This isn't over, one said weakly. Elena met his gaze. It is. They left without another word. Silence settled again, deep and complete. Elena exhaled a breath she'd been holding for years. Inside the cabin, the fire burned warm. Caleb set the rifle aside. You did well, he said. She looked at him, eyes bright. I didn't freeze. He allowed himself a small smile. No. You didn't. That night, as the mountain held them safe once more, Elena understood something fundamental. She hadn't been saved. She had chosen to live. The night after her brothers left felt different. Not quiet. Resolved. Elena sat near the fire, wrapped in a blanket, watching the flames curl and break apart. Her hands were steady now. The tremor that had lived in her bones for years was gone, replaced by a calm she didn't entirely trust yet, but welcomed all the same. Caleb moved around the cabin without hurry, checking locks, setting the rifle back in its place, feeding the fire. The danger had passed for the moment, but something heavier lingered in the air, something unspoken. You don't have to stay up, he said. I know, she replied. But I don't want to sleep yet. He nodded and took the chair across from her, resting his forearms on his knees. Firelight carved lines across his face, highlighting scars she hadn't asked about. After a long silence, Elena spoke. You said you used to live out here alone. He looked into the flames. I did. And before that? Another pause. Longer this time. Before that, he said slowly, I failed someone. Her breath caught. She didn't interrupt. My wife, he continued. Years ago. We lived lower on the mountain. Thought we were prepared. Thought we could handle winter. His jaw tightened. We couldn't. Elena felt her chest ache, but she stayed silent. She got sick, he said. Snow came early. Roads closed. I tried to get her help. His voice roughened. Didn't make it back in time. The fire cracked loudly. I buried her myself, he finished. When I came back here, it wasn't to hide. It was to make sure I never failed again. Elena swallowed hard. You think you failed her. I know I did. She leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. You didn't fail me. He met her eyes then, something raw and unguarded flickering through his usual restraint. No, he said quietly. You survived. And you helped me, she said. That matters. Silence wrapped around them, not empty, but full. Later that night, the sound came again. Not hooves. Voices. More than two. Caleb was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. Elena rose beside him, heart steady even as adrenaline surged. This is it, she said. Yes, he replied. They stepped outside together. Lantern light spilled into the clearing, revealing three men this time. Her brothers, and a fourth figure she didn't recognize. A hired hand. A stranger with a gun and no stake in the past. You should have taken the warning, the oldest said. Now it's business. Elena felt fear flicker, but it didn't root her in place. Caleb's voice was low, iron calm. Leave. The stranger laughed. You think one man can stop us? Caleb didn't answer. He fired into the snow, just enough to make the point. The sound echoed off the mountain walls, thunderous and final. This land remembers, Caleb said. And it doesn't forgive. The stranger hesitated. The brothers didn't. They lunged. Everything happened fast. Caleb moved like the mountain itself, precise, unstoppable. He disarmed one brother with a brutal efficiency that ended the fight before it began. The second fell back, slipping on ice, panic overtaking rage. The stranger bolted. The oldest brother froze, weapon half raised. Elena stepped forward. Stop, she said. He looked at her, really looked, and something in her expression broke him. This ends now, she said. You walk away. or you answer for what you did." The mountain wind howled, fierce and absolute. He dropped the weapon. They left. This time, they didn't look back. When silence finally returned, Elena realized her hands were shaking, not with fear, but with release. Caleb lowered the rifle. "It's over," he said. She nodded. "Yes." Inside the cabin, they sat by the fire again, closer now, though still careful. The weight of survival settled into something quieter. "I don't know what comes next," Elena said. Caleb met her gaze. "You choose." She smiled faintly. "I'm tired of running." He didn't reach for her. Didn't promise anything he couldn't keep. "Then rest," he said. "The mountain isn't taking anything more from you." Elena leaned back, eyes closing as warmth wrapped around her once more. For the first time, the future didn't feel like something to fear. It felt like something waiting. The mountain exhaled. Not all at once, not loudly, but in the subtle ways only those who lived with it could recognize. The wind softened. The night sounds returned. Somewhere far off, an owl called, as if confirming that balance had been restored. Elena stood in the clearing long after the men were gone, the lantern's glow painting soft gold across the snow. Her body still hummed with adrenaline, but beneath it was something new, space. A hollow where fear had lived for years, now emptied. Caleb broke the silence first. "We should check the perimeter." She nodded and followed him, careful but no longer hesitant. They walked the edge of the clearing together, their boots crunching in sync, lantern light swinging between them. No tracks lingered. The mountain had already begun to erase what it didn't wish to remember. Inside the cabin, the fire was still warm. Caleb added a log and sat, rubbing his hands together, the fight finally catching up to him. Elena noticed the faint tremor in his fingers, the cost of restraint finally paid. "You're hurt," she said. He shook his head. "Nothing worth naming." She crossed the room and gently took his hand before he could pull it away. "Not a demand. Not a claim. Just contact. You don't have to be made of stone," she said softly. For a moment, he didn't respond. Then he let out a breath he'd been holding for years. "I forgot how." She cleaned the scrape on his knuckles with steady care. The act felt intimate in a way neither of them rushed to define. When she finished, she didn't let go right away. "Thank you," she said. "For standing with me. Not in front of me." He met her eyes. "You did the standing." Morning arrived bright and startlingly clear. Sunlight spilled across the valley, igniting the snow into a field of diamonds. Elena stood at the window, marveling at how different the world looked when she wasn't afraid of it. Caleb brewed coffee, the rich scent filling the cabin. He set a cup beside her without comment. "What now?" she asked. "Now," he said, "we let the mountain do what it does. And we do what we choose." They rode down to the lower trail by midday, not together on one horse, not dramatically, but side by side. The settlement felt smaller than Elena remembered. Less powerful. Less frightening. Word had already spread. People looked at her differently, not with pity, not with suspicion, but with a careful respect. The doctor examined her ribs and confirmed what she already knew: she would heal. A deputy asked questions. Elena answered them calmly. Truthfully. Without shame. By evening, the matter was settled. No warrants for her. No doubts left to weaponize. The mountain had witnesses now, and so did she. On the ride back, the sky blushed pink and gold. Elena felt lighter than she had in years. "Will you stay?" Caleb asked quietly, not assuming. She considered the question honestly. The cabin. The mountain. The man beside her who never took more than she offered. "Yes," she said. "If you'll have me." He nodded once. "I will." Days turned into weeks. Elena grew stronger. She learned the rhythms of the place, when to rise, when to rest, how to read the weather by the way the trees whispered. She helped mend fences, learned to shoot better, laughed more often than she'd thought possible. Caleb changed too. He spoke more. Not much, but enough. He told her stories of his wife when the nights were quiet, not with guilt, but with remembrance. Elena listened without jealousy, understanding that love didn't replace, it expanded. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Caleb said, "There's something I should ask." She smiled. "You don't ask much." "I know." He took her hands, grounding himself as much as her. "I won't claim you. I won't cage you. But if you want this life, if you want me, I'll stand with you as long as the mountain stands." Elena felt tears rise, but they were warm ones. "That's all I've ever wanted." They sealed the promise not with grand gestures, but with a quiet kiss, gentle, deliberate, chosen. Winter loosened its grip as spring hinted at its return. Snow melted into song. The trail where Elena had been left for dead disappeared beneath new growth. Sometimes she stood there anyway, breathing deeply, honoring the woman she'd been, and the one she had become. Caleb stood with her, silent as ever. The mountain kept them both. Spring did not arrive all at once. It came the way healing always did, slowly, unevenly, with moments of warmth followed by sudden cold. Snow still clung to the highest ridges, but the lower valley softened. The creek swelled with meltwater, its voice growing stronger each day, as if reminding the mountain that life did not stop for grief. Elena felt the change in her body before she saw it in the land. Her ribs no longer ached when she breathed deeply. Her hands stopped trembling when sudden noises broke the quiet. Sleep came without the sharp edge of fear clawing her awake. She woke with the sun now, not from nightmares. One morning, she stepped outside barefoot, letting the cold earth ground her. Caleb watched from the porch, coffee steaming in his hands. "You're not running anymore," he said. She smiled faintly. "No. I'm standing." They worked side by side that day, repairing the last stretch of fence damaged in winter. It wasn't heroic work. No danger. No witnesses. Just the sound of wood, wind, and two people learning how to exist without bracing for the next blow. Later, as they sat on the porch watching clouds drift over the peaks, Elena spoke the thought she had been carrying quietly. "I don't want my life to be defined by what was done to me." Caleb nodded. "Then it won't be. But I also don't want to pretend it didn't happen." He considered that. "The mountain doesn't erase scars," he said. "It grows around them." That night, Elena took out the small notebook she'd started keeping. Not to document pain, but to claim memory on her own terms. She wrote about the trail, the cold, the moment she thought she would die. And then she wrote about waking up in a cabin, about hands that never demanded, about silence that protected instead of punished. When she finished, she closed the book and felt lighter. Weeks passed. Word from the valley faded. The men who once hunted her did not return. Life moved forward, as it always does when fear loses its grip. One afternoon, a rider arrived, an older woman from the settlement below. She carried a basket of supplies and news. "They're reopening the schoolhouse," the woman said. "We could use help. Teaching. Sewing. Anything you'd like." Elena thanked her and promised to think about it. After the rider left, Caleb waited, not asking. "I might want that," Elena said eventually. "Not to escape this place. Just to be part of something again." "You don't need permission," he replied. "I know," she said gently. "But I wanted you to know." He nodded, pride flickering briefly across his face. The day Elena rode down to the valley alone was the first true test of her freedom. Caleb watched her go without following. Without hovering. Without fear. She returned at dusk, dust on her boots and resolve in her eyes. "How was it?" he asked. "I was scared," she admitted. "And then I wasn't." They shared a quiet laugh. Summer came quickly after that. The valley bloomed. The cabin felt less like a refuge and more like a home. Elena planted a small garden near the creek. Caleb helped build a better porch rail, one she insisted on painting herself. One evening, as fireflies flickered at the edge of the trees, Caleb spoke. "I've lived most of my life believing I was meant to be alone." Elena rested her head against his shoulder. "So did I. I thought solitude was strength. And now? Now I think strength is choosing who stands beside you." He turned to her then, not with urgency, not with claim, but with certainty. "I won't ask you to stay forever," he said. "But if you want to, I'd like that." Elena looked at the mountains, at the sky deepening into blue, at the place where she had once crawled into the snow ready to disappear. "I choose this," she said. "I choose us." They did not marry quickly. There was no rush, no need to prove anything to the world. Their bond was already visible in the way they moved together, the way silence never felt empty. When they finally stood before a small gathering months later, neighbors, friends, chosen family, the vows were simple. No promises of possession. No declarations of rescue. Only this. "I will not hurt what is mine," Caleb said quietly, his eyes steady on hers. And Elena replied, I will not disappear again. Winter returned the following year, as it always would. Snow fell thick and heavy, covering old tracks, reshaping the land. But this time, Elena watched it from the warmth of the cabin, fire crackling behind her, Caleb's presence steady at her side. The trail where she had been left for dead was gone now, buried beneath fresh snow and time. But the mountain remembered. And so did she. Not as a place of ending, but as the place where everything began again. Sometimes, late at night, the wind would rise and press against the cabin walls. Caleb would reach for her hand. And Elena would sleep, unafraid. Because she was no longer surviving. She was living. And the mountain, silent, vast, eternal, kept what it had chosen to save.